This is the hardest episode to have to make. It undoes everything I've already said. It undoes all the doing. The doing is undone. This week we talk about the brave, the bold, the hardest type of team to have to make when you don't want to make what's meta. And that is the counter meta. Yes, there is a meta for the counter meta. This is the meta that unmetas the meta's meta. Did you catch all that? No? Good, because I just said makes sense anyway. It doesn't make any sense anyway. Basically, the goal of this is to analyze the metagame, or this type of build, is to analyze the metagame and do the most stopping. Does that make sense? Do the most stopping? She's looking at me with a blank stare like she knows it. Worst director ever. Call me Spielberg. So basically what an anti-meta team does is it takes the most common themes and ensures that they stop them. And in some cases, they're actually able to use them. So we're going to start from the beginning. He was common in last Worlds. I don't think he made the top 16, but is the Iron Man from 10th Anniversary, playable at 225 or 125. He basically takes no damage from guys with resources, which is pretty cool. What he does is when a character assigned a resource would deal damage to him, instead ignore all that damage, and if they then roll a die on a 4, 5, or 6, he takes nothing. On a 1, 2, or 3, he takes 1 penetrating damage. So basically what he does is he turns some entire teams that are fully assigned a resource into slow burning, 1 damage dealing nightmares. He's good. He's definitely good against the Book of Skulls. But there's a lot of ways around him. Granted, that ability is a trait, but if you're playing a resource like the utility belt or the Infinity Gauntlet, there's nothing stopping you from using that character to outwit his impervious and do damage with another character on your team. He's good. He's not all stopping. He does make the game take an awful long time when he's being used against that team. Also anti-resource would be the Catwoman at 68 points. She didn't make much of a splash in a lot of teams, but at 68 points, she's reasonable to fit in a team, and she turns off resources within 6 squares of her. Now, if you can hold her in stealth and hold her outside of base contact with opponents with resources, she can be everybody's nightmare. But if you can't do that and she does get touched, and by touched I mean hit and doesn't super sense it off, she's not going to do a whole lot of good for you, because that is a white power, even though it is a trait, she doesn't have an exceptionally long dial to go with that. Now, remember, I'm not completely throwing these guys off to the side. This is the riskiest way to build a team, is with this in mind. So when it sounds like I'm going about a lot of guys, there's a reason for that. Now, this one's a brand new figure, and she caught my eye almost immediately when I read the trait on her. I feel she's going to make a big splash in the 300-point metagame, especially against the collection of resources that is out there between the Phoenix Force, the Book of Skulls, not so much the Bat Belt, but the Bat Belt all the same, because you'll take away the abilities from it, and that is Lydia Maller. Sorry. Let's take a look at this in a nutshell. In a nutshell, stats, pretty good for a 79-point figure. She's got 17 defense with combat reflexes, which is great because she's got flying and 10 movement, so she can get in there. She's got indomitable, 10 attack with super strength, and 3 damage with shape change. All that combines to a neat little 79-point package. And then we look at her trait, the growing darkness. Now, I'm not going to go into the second part of the trait, because that really only happens in big games where you're playing all of the chases from the Superman and Legion of Superheroes set. But what you will see is that her trait allows you to steal a relic off of a resource that your opponent controls. Now, That is pretty awesome in the fact that you can take a tool, like, you gotta think of the toolboxes like the Book of the Skulls say. I have seen teams built with single hammers on the Book of the Skulls. You are going to ruin that guy's day. I have seen not full utility belts with the bare minimums to get you the willpower, and you take some of those items away, and all of a sudden it's a nothing. I mean, here's a good example would be if you see that Ghost Rider across the board with a bat belt, and the guy has decided to take the Pseudosaurus. The Pseudosaurus gives you super strength and battle fury. Take it. Why not? What's the worst that can happen? Lydia Muller has no range anyway. So you see where I'm going with this. There's a lot of potential just taking that one relic that can mess with a lot of teams. In addition to all of that, she's got a neat little white special power on her movement. That's kind of like the Out of the Shadows Batman from the Justice League set. He was so cool. So her mobility is going to be pretty awesome too, especially when you can make a close combat attack and then dive away 5 squares and hindering with her. And that power comes with stealth and smoke cloud. Wow. Awesome character. I put her under the anti-meta because of that relic power. And she's just all around good. So for 79 points, this is one of the chases to get. The next option in the anti-meta is stopping power actions. The reason this is great is, let's look at a character like Void Sentry, who's got multi-attack. Now, multi-attack requires a power action in order to be able to take 2 of those actions. Running shot requires a power action in order to do that. What else? Charge requires a power action. Close combat expert requires a power action. Range combat expert requires a power action. A lot of these things take power actions. But if you can't make those power actions, they're pretty worthless. We bring up the Unspoken. Now, the Unspoken on his own, 236 points, pretty reasonable. In a 300-point game, you can fit a utility belt on him, and you can slap the Watcher on your team to move him right to your opponent almost immediately. You kind of see where this guy goes. He stops power actions, and then if you happen to have a utility belt, slap some handcuffs on somebody. In order to get the handcuffs off, you got to take a power action. If you can't take a power action, you can't take an action to get the handcuffs off. Gonna have a bad day. The problem with the Unspoken is he also becomes under the strategy of tent-poling or one-man army, something I'm going to be talking about in a later episode. So it is kind of an eggs in your basket with him. The bonuses, of course, is that he doesn't push because he's power cosmic. He doesn't get outwitted because he's power cosmic. He's got really reasonable stats, and he is a bit of a brick house himself. So he falls into an option, but I don't want to put too many eggs in that basket because I haven't seen what's going to be cut in the next group of cuts, and Chaos Wars could be very well one of them. So without putting too much money on that, eggs in that basket, there's that. Then there's Atuma, who kind of replaces him. The only difference between Atuma and the Unspoken is that the Unspoken adds Battle Fury to the mix, and his thing has a 3-square range. So if he's within 3 squares of a character, the character also has Battle Fury, which means they can't push or they can't shoot him. So if you can get an opponent's team when they're close together, the Unspoken is going to ruin some days. Atuma, you can spread some water out with him. And then characters within 6 squares of the water, any water, while Atuma's on the board, can't make power actions. Now, if you happen to fit Atuma into a theme team and happen to win the dice roll, it is your responsibility to choose the Pacific Ocean map and ruin your opponent's day. Yeah, laugh it up, Amber.
I did that for fear itself.
So, Atuma is a good option if you can make him work. He's a little trickier than the Unspoken, where the Unspoken just kind of goes there. So come over here. So, excuse me. I want to add to this list that I personally don't own. One of which, and most important of which, is the new anti-meta figure, who is meta on the anti-meta. And that's the Iron Pharaoh. The Iron Pharaoh has, in addition to the fact that he doesn't necessarily have to move to get his range, when he attacks a character that shares a keyword with him, he gets +1 attack, +1 damage. One of his keywords just happens to be mystical. So not only does he fall into the meta of the mystical team by throwing him and, say, Brother Voodoo on the team, you kind of get where I'm going with that. He is meta in the anti-meta where he's able to crush the meta by doing extra damage to the meta. Did your mind explode? Good, because it made mine explode when I started thinking. It took the last ROC for me to go, this guy can make a heck of an impact on the game. So, there is that to think about. There was another figure I had to bring up. It was anti-meta, and it's completely out of my brain. But you kind of catch what I'm getting at here. It's one of those strategies that takes a brave man to commit to, especially when you go into a high-level competition. It's one thing to go, I'm going to play a common meta team. It's another thing to go, I'm going to beat the meta. There's a lot of commonality when it comes to the mixed meta strategies of the game, but there's a totally different mindset when your goal is to break it, and it's really hard to come in with the perfect pocket knife. Iron Pharaoh and Lydia Muller come close, but they're also both chases. There's that. Alright, let's talk ROC, I guess. So ROC Edmonton happened in our backyard of nowhere near us, Canada. I want to congratulate the winner, first of all, like we always prefer to do, and that would be Mr. Rob Berzul. I apologize for all the players that I try to pronounce names of. I'm not the best at it. So he managed to win himself the tournament without the Iron Pharaoh, I believe. Yeah, he used Cerise, Cyclops, Loki, Rose Wilson with the Ravagers ATA, Split Lip, a Thule Priest, and an Uru Forge. Once again, in this one, they didn't specifically say no tactics. They were very specific to no resources. Cool. I applaud that. You're not helping anybody for Worlds. But this one had a very different set of teams on there. There were some really interesting ones. Some were just like, really, I wish I could have been there. Because like there was one guy that played all convention exclusives. And it was the Dr. Fate, Pandora, and Question. Holy moly. That's just like, hey, he either went there or spent some major money on that team. But overall, in this one, a very common element is the mystical team again. I don't know what to say about it. It's a potent team. The options are almost limitless because mystical is just if the comic book character is touched by magic, they're mystical. So, yeah, it was very commonly themed. Brother Voodoo finding his way into quite a few teams didn't seem to be... Well, yeah, he was pretty common in this one. Who am I kidding? Not as prevalent was the Iron Pharaoh. So, I think I say 2, maybe 3 teams with it. Congratulations to all the players in the top 16. No shock, Patricia Lamb was at this tournament and placed in the top 10. Not shocked in the least. She's really good at this game. So for any of you who look at the standings and go, oh my goodness, a girl, like, yeah, she's good. She's consistently in the top 16 in Worlds pretty much every year. But that said, the ROC is bringing out a lot of neat teams. And yeah, there's a lot of neat things going on, but it's really hard to say if this is going to have any effect on Nationals or Worlds, mostly because of the absence of resources in a lot of the ROC tournaments. So there's still many more of those tournaments to see, and there's still Nationals and Worlds coming up in the summer. Oh my goodness, it's March already. Oh, I don't think we're going to make Worlds this year. Next year. Okay. Anyway, Metafix.